He wandered in another world for a long time. He went from being a king's apprentice to becoming a top-ranked expert, successfully battling the forces of evil. But during the fight with the Lord of the Abyss, he was sucked into a spatial temporal turbulence. At that moment, he thought his journey was over, that he had simply perished. Little did he know that he would return back to his original world, the Blue Star. But what surprised him the most was the encounter with his daughter, whom he had promised a bright future and to always be by her side. But more on that later. The world of Sardia, a planet of extremely high level, located on the front line of the Abyss invasion. The legend says that only a sacred knight, surpassing the supreme knights, can deal with the Abyss invasion. Sardia, the military citadel of emptiness. Before him stood the Lord of the Abyss, Thor, the king who came from another world, the mightiest warrior of Sardia. "You pitiful ant! You deceived me countless times over the past 300 years, roared an enraged Thor. But today is the day of your death, he greeted the paladin with these words. But the legendary paladin of Sardia, Zuo Yi, had other plans. Drawing his sword and thrusting it into the ground, he began casting spells. He stood in defense of those who were in dire need, his Lord of the Abyss. Thor was cruel and bloodthirsty, and he was confident of his victory. Furiously, he lunged at the paladin, swinging his axe. But Zuo Yi was prepared. Today, he was determined to put an end to Thor once and for all. With a wild battle cry, he met his enemy, impaling him with his paladin's sword. Astonished, Thor did not expect to encounter the legendary Holy Paladin before him. "Judgment of the Holy Spirit!" shouted the paladin, and a powerful beam of light pierced the formidable enemy. Holy chains bound his hands, legs, and pierced his body. "This is impossible! I, the Lord of the Abyss, Thor, no one can defeat me!" roared an enraged Thor, and unknown forces burst out of him, wrapping around Zuo Yi's body, and then everything became dark. The lower level, the Blue Star, the world of Daxia. There was some kind of costume festival, and the paladin who arrived from another world was mistaken for a cosplayer, but even here, everyone paid attention to his appearance. Zuo Yi was still in the heat of battle, slightly battered and still not understanding how he survived. And how he ended up here, he pulled something out, some small glowing sphere called the Web of Laws. It was a source of power for all worlds through which he wanted to track down Thor. Zuo Yi didn't know if he managed to banish Thor and where he was at all. Looking around, he realized where he had arrived. He had previously gone to another world for hundreds of years, but now he had returned. "Hello, what year is it according to the Daxia calendar?" the newcomer asked a stranger. "It's the year 971, why do you ask?" the bewildered girl replied. Time flowed differently in different worlds. He had been gone for hundreds of years, but in this world, only 3 years had passed. Thinking that there was no trace of Thor, he decided to go home and find out what was happening. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining and people were enjoying life. Zuo Yi remembered his previous life. He decided to go home, spread his wings. But he forgot that Daxia was an ordinary world, and there was no need to display such things. They were too frightening to those around him. The paladin decided not to attract attention and assume a normal appearance for this world. First of all, he needed money, so he decided to sell his belongings. Immediately, he headed to a jewelry store where the employees greeted him warmly. Hearing that the visitor brought gold to the store director rushed to meet him. Zuo Yi took out a coin to have it appraised. The experienced director immediately realized that it was a very unusual item, took the coin and went to examine it. After conducting tests, the director couldn't believe his eyes because, according to the results, it was pure gold. And in his world, the technology to extract such a material simply did not exist. Returning to the buyer, he offered 40,400 yen for the coin. That's around $5,700. The director knew that the coin was worth much more. The paladin knew it too because the coin was made of pure gold and created with the power of the law in Sardia. But he agreed to this amount and went to spend the money. Buying a phone and clothes in the local style, he no longer attracted undue attention. From his uncle, he learned that the area where his home was located was going to be demolished. He was also contacted by the State Child Care Center in Hangzhou. His daughter was there. but Zhuo Yi took them for scammers. Taking a taxi, he headed home to the city of Linzian. The car arrived precisely at the address. Opening the gate, the traveler, journeying through worlds, arrived at the doorstep of his old house. Clearly, nobody had been there for a long time. With difficulty, he opened the doors and found himself in a dusty and cobweb-filled room. On one of the shelves, he saw a photograph of his mother. A sense of nostalgia overwhelmed him. How he longed to bring his mother back to life. This feeling was the only thing that sustained him during the difficult years in Sardia. But even after attaining such a high rank, it was beyond his power. He regretted wandering through the worlds for so long without finding a way to bring his mother back to life. As a first step, he decided to clean up. However, he wanted to do it in an unusual way by using his power. Twirling his magic ring, he summoned someone. Who could it be? Mr. Proper? Well, almost. It was a magical spirit. After receiving instructions, the genie got to work. Zhuo Yi felt a strange sensation as he used his spiritual vision, the paladin's magic, to see the true nature of this world. He saw various creatures trying to enter this world, but the web of laws prevented them from doing so. This world instinctively repelled the arrival of powerful beings. His phone rang in his pocket. It was a text message from the same center that had strongly invited him to a meeting. Zhuo Yi still thought it might be scammers, but he decided to put an end to it and agreed to the meeting. He spoke to a lovely girl accompanied by a little girl. The little one was waiting for her aunt to pick her up, but she received a surprise when she found out she had a father. One of the major corporations was implementing a project that required demolishing all the houses in the neighborhood, including the paladin's house. The owner of this corporation was visited by the director of a jewelry store, who brought an unusual coin for display. The arrogant millionaire failed to recognize its value. However, sitting at the table with him were descendants of the noble Chen family, Chen Minjie and his cousin Ye Yingshui, who apparently possessed extraordinary abilities. She immediately sensed that the coin was actually a spiritual object. She was shocked to discover that there were items of law in this world. Chen Minjie asked the frightened jewelry store director where he got this coin from. The man explained that he even had the phone number of the person who sold him the coin. Zhuo Yi happened to be approaching the meeting. His Uncle Zhong called out to him. Uncle Zhong had no idea that all this time it had been happening to his nephew. He handed Zhuo Yi an agreement regarding the demolition of his house and promised to help with the matter before rushing off. Zhuo Yi incinerated the agreement as he had no intention of allowing the demolition. A reminder came for a meeting at the community center. Zhuo Yi used his abilities to teleport to the designated location. He was greeted by a lovely girl who was leading a little girl. Using his spiritual vision, Zhuo Yi determined that this girl was his direct descendant. The girl also stared at Zhuo Yi in astonishment. The girl's teacher, who had brought her, explained that 3 months ago, the girl's aunt, who was taking care of her, left the father's contact information. Since the center couldn't reach Miss Su, they decided to contact the father. Strangely, Zhuo Yi had never heard of Su Wangzhen. The girl immediately reached out to her newfound father. But first, he had to take a paternity test before they would give him his daughter. He needed to resolve the demolition issue before anything else. The genie served breakfast to the owner on the summer terrace of the renovated house. Construction work was bustling all around, demolishing the buildings nearby, and Zhuo Yi had to be on guard. The genie reminded the owner about the gargoyle. Zhuo Yi thought it was a good idea and summoned the gargoyle, ordering it to guard his house. Back at Zhuo Yi's home, the director of a jewelry store called him on behalf of the people to whom he had sold a coin. Nervously, he asked if there were any more coins for sale. The coin of the law was the lowest-level artifact in Sardia, but only the best craftsmen could make it. If the paladin didn't urgently need the money, he wouldn't have sold the coin for only 40,000 yuan. "I'm not selling them anymore," Zhuo Yi replied sharply. However, the director insisted on the sale, offering a high price. "A high price? 5 million or 10 million? Zhuo Yi jokingly asked. With his owner's permission, the jeweler agreed to the amount of 10 million. "Fine, 10 million will be the price for each coin." "But we can't pay 10 million for each coin," the jeweler negotiated. "Then I have nothing more to discuss with you," Zhuo Yi said firmly and hung up. greatly infuriating the person on the other end of the line. They ordered to find Zhuo Yi and sent thugs after him. Without waiting for them to open the gate, the thugs, together with the jeweler, broke through. However, they encountered the guarding gargoyle at the house, which attacked the gang of thugs who clearly did not expect such a meeting. "What kind of monster is this?" they shouted in fear. The defender of the house scattered the thugs one by one and they fled in fear. But along with the thugs, some unusual guys called extraordinaries also arrived. Mr. Chen understood that the owner of this unusual item could also be extraordinary. The extraordinaries rushed at the gargoyle. The paladin didn't even notice the presence of the extraordinaries. Apparently, he shouldn't relax even in this low-level world. The battle between the two mercenaries and the gargoyle began. But the owner of the house used suppression, and the pair fell to the ground, surprising the paladin with their weakness. Perhaps that's why he didn't sense them. The terrified jeweler ran away to tell his owner everything. Zhuo Yi attached a magical beacon to him to track whoever was behind him. The phone rang. They were calling from the center, inviting him to visit his daughter, as the little girl wanted to see her father. He ordered his genie to clean up everything and rushed to the meeting. The little girl sat on the playground and felt sad. She was lonely in this world. But hope settled within her when she learned that she had a father. Zhuo Yi stood at the gate, afraid to go in. Yes, the legendary paladin was nervous at the sight of the little girl. Hesitant to enter, he decided to pass the gift for the girl through her teacher. He had been through a lot during this time, but he had never taken care of children, so he simply didn't know how to do it. However, the teacher persuaded him to approach his daughter. The little girl was happy to see her daddy. She gladly accepted his gift, a huge teddy bear that was 3 times her size. The little girl suggested playing a board game with her father. Zhuo Yi had no experience interacting with children, and despite the fact that the girl was still very young, he didn't go easy on her and won several times, which disappointed the little girl a bit. Zhuo Yi was urgently called to the police station, where someone from the Fang family was already waiting. The scientist father hurried to the meeting and before leaving, decided to cheer up his daughter by arranging the game so that the little girl would win. At the police station, 2 aggressively inclined big guys were trying to find out why their application had been rejected. But a voice from behind diverted their attention to someone else. The big guys looked as if they had seen a ghost. They thought Zhuo Yi had died long ago. But as it was evident, the guy was perfectly fine. One of them quickly pretended to be friendly, acting delighted to see him. But the experienced paladin immediately saw through his act. He was not familiar with the Feng family. "You have our blood running through you," one of the Fengs tried to argue, but even then, the big guy was put in his place. And then the big guy dropped all pretenses and stopped pretending. He shouted that Zhuo Yi's house would be demolished, even if they had to kill Zhuo Yi. "You'd better back off or you'll reunite with your mother," the scoundrel continued to threaten. Oh, he shouldn't have said that. He awakened demonic rage within Zhuo Yi. What the hell? Black tendrils emerged from our hero, something resembling venom. Such a nasty thing was hardly seen since Thor's battle. The tentacles threw the big guy against the wall. He was so scared by what he saw that he wet himself. "Monster! He's a monster!" the terrified scoundrel cried out. The uncle was also shocked. Zhuo Yi calmly addressed the second one. "Go back and tell Fang's champion, the old man, to stop thinking about my mother's things. Also, tell those behind you to stop showing their claws." He turned around and left, bidding farewell to the uncle, who stared at him in horror. What happened to this child in recent years? The uncle thought. The next morning, Zhuo Yi was getting ready to look for a job, but even his genie was shocked. How could the strongest paladin work with ordinary people? Thus, Zhuo Yi decided to adapt to this world. He planned to pick up his daughter and make a good impression on her. On the way, he intended to stop by the martial arts studio to visit his master. This master had once taught Zhuo Yi how to handle a sword, which had saved his life multiple times in another world. Using his magic, he conjured up a cool sports bike and set off on his journey. When he arrived at the martial arts studio, he was disappointed. Instead of the studio sign, there was a sign for a hot beverage shop. However, it seemed that the studio still existed. Going upstairs, he saw a beautiful woman behind the counter. a senior sister. "Hello? Are you hiring fencing instructors?" he asked her. The girl immediately recognized Zhuo Yi and was very glad to see him. Taking him by the hand, she invited him inside. Unfortunately, there was sad news waiting for him. The girl's father, his master, had passed away 6 months ago. Zhuo Yi was surprised because the master was at the peak of his powers. But the girl explained that he was old and inevitably fell ill. Abruptly changing the subject, the girl asked if he really wanted to become an instructor. She was now the director of the studio. Zhuo Yi felt that the girl was hiding something, but he didn't press for more information. Upon entering the studio, the former disciple saw a photo of his teacher. Deciding to honor his memory, he lit some incense sticks. It was not just an act of respect, it was a magical ritual. He tried to uncover the true cause of his master's death, and indeed found out that the master's death was unusual. The girl interrupted the ritual with words about how the Heavenly Enlightenment, the name of the martial arts studio, was unable to pay the instructor's salary. But money didn't matter to Zhuo Yi. He wanted to help his alma mater and get down to business as soon as possible. He received an SMS message notifying him that the paternity test was completed and he needed to come to the center. Little Bauer was indeed Zhuo Yi's daughter. Together with her older sister, they went to the center to bring her home. The older sister said she still had business at the martial arts studio and declined the invitation to come inside. As she left, she asked to take a look at the 2 books she had bought for Zhuo Yi. She also invited the little girl to visit her. The girl was overjoyed that she would finally have her own home. Is this the child spoken of in the legends?" said the genie who was watching them. Upon seeing the genie, little Bauer got scared and started crying. Zhuo Yi was far from being an exemplary father, but he tried to calm her down by saying that the genie was their servant and his name was A Gu. However, the word servant was new to the little girl. "Daddy, what about that monster? Is it also a servant?" The little girl pointed at the gargoyle. Zhuo Yi was surprised that the girl could see the gargoyle, even though she shouldn't be able to. Gargoyles had one of the best hiding skills in Sardia, but Bauer could see it. The fierce appearance of the gargoyle also frightened the little girl, but Zhuo Yi reassured her that it was a good friend who protected the house and wouldn't harm them. Jane led the little girl to explore the house. When Bauer saw a photograph, which she initially thought was of a woman, she noticed that she was very beautiful. But then she learned that it was her grandmother. Zhuo Yi didn't go into details and simply said that she had gone far, far away. Together with his daughter, they performed a ceremony to honor the deceased. The fragrance from the paladin's lit incense sticks could convey the reverent voices of the living to the departed souls in the endless river of the afterlife. Zhuo Yi wanted to show his mother that she had a granddaughter. The little girl was hungry, so the father decided to prepare food himself. However, since he hadn't done it in a long time, what he made turned out to be somewhat inedible. It would have been better to order food. The day was eventful, and everyone was quite tired. The little girl fell asleep. In her dream, she dreamed of her mother's embrace. Using his supervision, the paladin saw that the girl had a telepathic connection with someone, a mysterious connection that crossed the distance between worlds. As in this world, such a connection could only be established in one way. He realized that it was Bauer's biological mother. Trying to follow the trail of the connection, the paladin attempted to enter the other world, but he still hadn't fully recovered after the last battle. Such journeys were still beyond his capabilities. However, he noticed the growing branches of a tree. Has the world tree materialized through the consciousness of the planet? The paladin thought. "Welcome home, child," a voice came from somewhere. "Greetings, Your Excellency, the extraordinary one who has returned from another world," greeted the spirit. "Greetings, great consciousness," replied the paladin. He invited the spirit to leave a trace of its true name in this world. The spirit wanted to touch Zhuo Yi, but he had never met this spirit before and protected himself with a divine shield. Could this be a new great consciousness? The spirit was surprised by such a reaction. "Your Excellency, once the seal is done, I will bless you, and the blue star will serve as your anchor for travels across 1,000 worlds, protecting you from getting lost," the spirit kindly said. The paladin quickly agreed. However, the spirit was waiting not just for consent, but for mutual rewards. Politan said that he would gladly sign a contract to guard the blue star, but in return, the spirit had to give up the world seed that was created for Bauer. No, not for anything. I can produce only one world seed. I cannot give it to you. The spirit panicked. Then I'm not interested for now, the paladin said sharply and turned to leave. The spirit agreed to give up the seed, but in exchange for an oath. Zhuo Yi recited the oath, promising to live and die as the blue star. For some reason, the spirit felt deceived. Nevertheless, the paladin obtained his seed, which united the power of the world to protect its owner from disasters. When the paladin returned home, he gave the seed to his daughter and nonchalantly continued reading the child-rearing manual. The telepathic connection from the little girl reached her mother in another world. Her mother sat by the campfire, looking at a photograph of her daughter, Bauer. Morning came, and Zhuo Yi began to get ready for work. The sleepy little girl asked to go with him. Her father couldn't refuse, so they hopped on the motorcycle and set off on the road. Zhuo Yi tried to be a good father and acted according to what he had read in the parenting guide. On the way, they witnessed an accident. 2 cars collided and one of them crashed into a building. The driver of the car was a girl. He even recognized her. She was the same girl he had asked about the current year when he first arrived on the Blue Star. This girl had just obtained her driver's license and a new car. She couldn't wait to go for a ride, but on the road she was cut off by reckless motorcyclists. Everything happened in an instant. She crashed on the road, now almost unconscious in her wrecked car. Our hero and his daughter came to her aid. The paladin, holding his daughter in one hand, forcefully ripped open the door of the damaged car to rescue the girl inside. Her name was Van Xiaozhao. Her body was covered in wounds and abrasions, but the paladin utilized his abilities and healed the girl. He healed all significant wounds, leaving only minor scratches for the medics to tend to. The medical personnel were shocked because the girl had barely suffered any injuries. The police questioned witnesses who pointed out a man with a child, but Zhuo Yi and his daughters had already vanished. They arrived at the studio where the girl looked at her father as a superhero. Yes, Dad can perform miracles, but nobody should know about it. In the studio, Zhuo Yi was greeted by some boys in kimonos. "Are you the new teacher? Isn't that right?" said one of the healthy boys. "And who are you?" Zhuo Yi asked. "I am Zhang Dahai, the martial arts instructor of the school," proudly replied the healthy boy. There was a battle of gazes between Zhuo Yi and the healthy boy, but Zhuo Yi quickly showed who was who, delivering a blow to the boy's arm that made him grimace in pain. "Impressive physique," added Zhuo Yi, and squeezed the boy's shoulder so that he couldn't stand on his feet. The extraordinary strength of the new fencing instructor amazed the local masters. The little girl ran off to play, while Zhuo Yi started getting involved, questioning the older sister. In a few days, a wave of applications from students was expected. Zhuo Yi also inquired about the underground market in Hang Seng, where the master used to go. Zhuo Yi wanted to prepare a birthday gift for Bauer, but the gift he desired couldn't be bought in an ordinary market. Then, the sister remembered the Sixi market and suggested using their father's membership card. Previously, this market had been an arena for martial arts, but in the past year or two, it came under official control. The martial arts market, although short-lived, was more reliable since it was private. However, chaos reigned there. Are you sure you want to go there? What do you think? Will our paladin go to the former martial arts arena? And what will happen to him there? Write your thoughts in the comments. And finally, subscribe already. Like the video and click the bell icon so you don't miss the continuation of this captivating story. We need your support. This was the Manhwa Universe channel. See you in a bit.